Hello everybody and welcome to another interview with Bay12 Games. In this video we are covering many Dwarf Fortress C subjects, from adventure mode to frame rate to multi-threading to things that are coming soon, as well as a timeline for adventure mode. I think I already said adventure mode. Did I mention adventure mode? As well as some audience questions. But before I allow you to dive into this dwarfy goodness, I just would like to real quick announce something or mention something. If you are watching this before May 1st, check out the description of this video because there is a link to a charity event via the Tiltify link. It's called the Hot Potato Charity Marathon. This is a event that my stream team runs with help from some amazing creators. We are running a multi-day succession fort in Dwarf Fortress for charity. So if you'd like to help us raise some money for Doctors Without Borders, check out that link in the description. But aside from that, enjoy the show. And we should be back, and audio should be working, and everything should be functional. So hi, welcome back to another chat on my stream with Bay12 Games, and I'm joined by Tarn and Zach. How are you two doing?
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, doing great.
Well, it's been a couple months since we last spoke, and the last time we were on here, things were still kind of in a whirlwind, and I think stuff has settled down a little bit. And the way we always kind of present these is it's always like kind of a combination of audience questions and topics that I bring, and sometimes I have a guest, but this time it's just me. So I'm gonna start this right off with a community question, which comes in from a shady necromancer, and they say, 5 months later, how does Steam Dwarf Fortress feel?
Well, I mean, my life has completely changed. I live in a house now instead of, or no, I did live in a house before, but it was like a very, very tiny house.
Yeah,
with no internet.
rental house.
Right, it was terrible.
Yeah, and then the game itself, I mean, it feels maybe a little slowlier patched than normal because of all the bumping around that's been going on. It feels like we're just about ready to
Yeah, we're ready to go. We're like within, I don't know, a few days.
Yeah, a few days we'll get that beta switched over and then just, keep going from there until the next thing,
And adventure mode, right?
Yeah, adventure mode, finally.
Well, I guess kind of the one of the first things I've just been dying to know, due to the curiosity of like myself and a few others, since you released the game and it's gotten a large kind of wall of success. Has anybody offered to buy the Dwarf Fortress IP yet?
Nope.
No.
You haven't had anybody.
It would have to be a lot of money.
Yeah, and also, I mean, what are they gonna? They'd have to do something with it then. I mean, and they think, I don't know if anyone thinks they can just kind of pick it up and carry on with it. I mean, or what they do with it.
Make a different game called Dwarf Fortress or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like I don't know. And maybe they all just know that we're not gonna, sell it or whatever. Or maybe it's just fundamentally uninteresting to people that buy things.
Oh yeah, it's 20 years old. Who cares about it?
Yeah, it's a pretty old game.
True. Well, it's been a busy couple of months. How does it feel to be DICE's strategy game of the year? I'm getting infinite rejections for my attempt to generate a 3,000-year-old world, so we might just be going with normal world gen this time. So 500.
We just got our. We just got our trophies.
Trophies in the mail, yeah. You don't get to keep the trophy they give you on stage.
Prominently displayed on my bookshelf. So.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool. It was good to see the Elden Ring people. Good to see the Armored Core trailers popping up and stuff. They get to follow their dreams.
Yeah, we get to sit right next to the Elden Ring guy as he went up into accept his many awards at the DICE Awards. That was pretty cool.
Must be an unreal experience. Like I know I get a lot of. I think the word that people use is imposter syndrome when I'm at professional events, and that's got to be kind of a crazy place to find yourself in.
I was not expecting to be there until they sent us the email or whatever. So it's like, didn't really think we were going to be on the awards circuit at all, just because it's kind of a release of a released game. It didn't feel like 2022 was our year. It
did feel good though.
Yeah,
for the recognition. Yeah,
it was cool. It was good to be in a room of cheering people, you know.
So now that like you're back home and working on the game in some aspects, the comments that I see constantly are like the UI has improved significantly from where it was previously and is a lot more usable by humans generally. But there's still some things that annoy a lot of people, things like sorting and searching of menus. And I'm just curious, like, do you guys have a priority list of changes or tweaks that you want to make to the UI, or things or pieces of feedback that you've seen that you're like prioritizing?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of them. Sorting the menus, doing the
there's like a lot of menus that you can't sort
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Those are definite.
There's the game log and announcements and reports people miss. The ammo situation being completely screwed up and weird.
The archers, which have never worked.
Yeah, they never worked well. Now they're even worse, and we're just gonna.
Yeah, people have noticed now that there's so many more people playing it that they're no longer able to say, okay, well, we can just ignore the archers.
But now we have a 3-part plan for fixing up archers. XML export, which has been missing, is we're hoping to get that into 50.8 actually. Get that,
which is the next one.
In a couple days. We're hoping to get XML handled, and DF hack is going to work a lot more smoothly as well. So yeah. And then the food rotting in the rooms, which I think it's kind of related to the Archer bug. Just those things we didn't fix or get to from the military screen ended up having some repercussions. So that's the starting point, yeah, and then just kind of go from there.
Well, I mean, everybody needs a starting point. I mean, like right now we are sitting in a kind of a beta state on Steam, and I think that's a new thing for Dwarf Fortress, at least in my experience. I know that like in the old days it would just be like a version would drop and everybody would test it and it would break, and then we'd all go back to the old one, and then wait for an update. So are these beta branches just kind of going to be the norm going forward? Like 2 weeks before a patch, are we going to get a beta branch, or is this kind of a unique thing?
It's hard to say right now because there's two factors that entered into play here. One was this has the autosave fix in it, and the first time we tested the autosave fix with just a few people, it destroyed saves that were loaded. So we wanted to make sure that it worked, and it's kind of we don't change saves that often, right? We do save compatibility lasts for years and years and years and years. And so when we do this new Steam version, added all this new save structuring, timelines, all this stuff that was broken in several ways. Like, we just want to make sure that the saves worked. And it seems like autosave is working on the beta branches is what I'm getting, and hopefully that's correct. So that's one thing that made it unique. The other thing that made it unique was that I left on a trip for 8 days right when we were going to drop this. So that's another factor. But it's also something that we're definitely planning to do for the SDL2 stuff very soon, is getting another public test up. So public testing off of the main branch or the main default download is something that's going to be ongoing. We just don't know about this specific beta structure. It's probably just we're going to try out a bunch of different things.
There was a lot of I kind of did a Control F delete Mac, Linux, and SDL2 on the user questions because there was quite a few of them and they were all more or less the same, and I figured it would come up early in this anyway. So I spoke with Putnam about 10 days ago in a video, and they were talking quite heavily about frame rate improvements from SDL2. I'm curious, what kind of effect do you think SDL2 is going to have on the game itself, like performance-wise?
Oh, well, I mean, I think, I'm not sure. I mean, they would have to speak to whether they were talking about their changes that they made that they happened to put into the SDL2, okay. Which were unrelated to SDL2 itself, or the SDL2 improvements, because I just know the aggregate is like doubling the speed of the game, so that's good.
Yep, that is kind of crazy because like I when I put that video up, I had a bunch of people like coming at me and kind of going like, I don't believe that that's true. It's like I'm just curious to see it because I haven't
seen it yet.
Yeah, you'll have to send us a long death save or something so we can see the actual improvement.
Yeah, it should all be compatible. It'll be just awesome to see it just go poof or not or whatever happens. I don't know what parts are like dependent on how your fort is, like or aspects of the fort, like whether it's item. I know there's a lot that has to do with units rather than items, though, so that's good because there's dwarves, reliably. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome sounding. And you said that that's going to be coming in soon, yeah? Like, do we have a timeline for that public test, or is that just like after this patch is out?
So once the patch is out, then we're going to try our big merge. So this is us playing with version control, and it's been okay so far. And we'll just see what happens if there's merge conflicts and everything. I think it should hopefully be something that can just be tested publicly. That's what we're aiming at, just being able to test it publicly ASAP. So I don't think it'll be that long, but we'll see.
I'm very curious to test it on my Fortress Waterlungs, which currently runs at about 15 frames a second. So if it runs at like 25, that's a miracle as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. We'll see what happens. I mean, as long as it's not specifically from like fluids or something.
Right, that crazy multi-threading stuff too.
Yeah, no, it's because this is I believe multi-threading of the game itself, not the graphics, and also just a modernization of how the unit loops and things work, like, and how they're structured, how the units themselves are stored in memory, just all this kind of stuff that I didn't have the wherewithal, to handle. That when you
who would have known it is possible to multi-thread.
Yeah, just all this stuff.
All this time.
Well, not all this time. See, the thing is, a lot of this was invented within the last X years.
Oh yeah, there we go.
The new C stuff where you just like essentially slap the word thread in front of something and it multi-threads it. Which is something that obviously like some of the some people I believe. I've had multiple people send me micro-threading libraries and stuff that were, about as nice, but heavier implementation than the current stuff, which is just built into the language itself. But in any case, my apologies to all of the people that I failed over the years, and here we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, different skill sets and different knowledge of how different
and lots of
things
lots
work.
of money.
Like, make different stuff happen, right?
Yeah. No, and being able to pay a programmer didn't hurt. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On sort of on the topic of being able to pay a programmer, you mentioned your big merge and messing with version control. Somebody in chat just asked, what kind of version control are you using, out of curiosity?
Just the stuff that comes right with MSVC. It's just it's linked in with Git, and we aren't doing a cloud thing or anything, but we're just keeping track of our branches in a local repository and sending each other little diffs and sending each other new packages, bundles and things to load in, keeping it kind of synced like that. As I continue to work through my paranoia, and it's working. It's working well.
Dang.
Yeah.
Aside from SDL2, because I also got a lot of questions of this, do we have any kind of rough timeline for Mac OS and Linux native versions, or is that still just kind of a question mark?
No, it's all the same. It's all the same. Not that we're like releasing Mac and Linux in 3 days or something, but this SDL2 test is the road to Linux and Mac, and the port, as I understand it, and Putnam would know more about this, but the port, as I understand it, is basically done when that's. I mean, there's it's going to be rough around the edges, but it's done. That's what SDL2 gets us.
That's going to make a lot of people very happy, I think.
I make everybody happy. Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Fantastic.
So a little bit earlier, you mentioned you have a 3-part plan for the marksdwarves overhaul.
Yeah.
I'd like to swing back around to that. I'm a little bit curious about what this 3-part plan for the marksdwarf overhaul is, because currently marksdwarves just don't work.
Yes, and one of the key features of the 3-part plan is making them work. But that's just one of the features. Because there's basically the issues. We got rid of the thing that lets you set a squad's like bundles of like what kind of arrows they're going to use. So we're just going to rewrite the whole arrow use system between hunters and people that practice and people that are in squads, and move it over to what we're hoping will work with a stockpile system. We'll have to see. But that's just the beginning. That's kind of the very basics of like, okay, you can pick up your arrows and shoot them, but we also want archers to use fortifications properly, be able to position themselves choose the proper. Yeah, go ahead.
And stand their ground. Right?
Yeah,
instead of running away or running
like
forward. Yeah,
and also being able to when they would make that decision to run forward and beat somebody with their crossbow, to instead look around for nearby bolt piles to flee and go grab a bolts to act like ranged fighters,
yes,
rather than clubbers of people with their precious crossbow. And I don't know if the something about the three parts merged there, but that's there might be something else, but that was basically the idea, just betterment.
So when is that going to be something that's worked on, or is this kind of a like this will kind of get done alongside of adventure mode work, or is
no?
This...
Well, this is
it's the next big one.
Right? Yeah, it could be in 50.09. I mean, it depends on. The interesting thing going forward is the artists are kind of finishing up the things they're working on. Mm-hmm. We're having a call in 4 days to talk about adventure mode, right? And so artists need to remain unblocked, and they need to be able to see their work as they're going forward, their work in game. And so this is now our first real test of a 2-track development, right? Where we can, now that I feel comfortable with version control, at least more than I was when I knew nothing about it, now I feel like I can do adventure mode and put up stable new versions at the same time, and just switch between them as needed. If the artists need some stuff done now, then I can do that, and then go back to working on archers. And then when archers are done, we can put it up, and it's on a different track than the adventure mode stuff. And then when I do a release like that, then I can re-merge the archer stuff right into the adventure mode, and then they'll be in line again. And just act like a semi-modern programmer from 30 years ago, or whenever people were comfortable with this stuff. 40, I don't know how many. Yeah, quite a few.
When there was more than one programmer per project.
Yeah, 1965 or something, or however many people were like cracking the Enigma code or something.
I feel like every time I upload a video right now, I get like 3 to 5 comments that are just like, "Did they fix archers yet?" It's like, well. Like you can't, like I was able to make one train the other day by just only having one type of bolt in the entire fort, but like the second some random goblin fired off a bolt on the other end of the map, then it just broke again. So it's like, well, it's not very useful.
The it works automatically idea that we had didn't work. So yep, gotta get at it. Get it.
Yeah, that seems like the biggest kind of thing to tackle.
Yeah,
for the next Dwarf release, Fortress mode.
Yeah, archers and reports. Archers and reports, and by reports I mean like the game log and stuff like that.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what kind of improvements are you planning to make to the game log?
So there's a couple of things there. One is, I gather I can't tell from the comments because people sometimes are very terse, whether they're talking about like re-implementing sound sense by getting the game log running, or if they just miss being able to press A, or if they miss being able to press Shift R. So those things, all of them coming back. And then with reports, like we have the ability now to have those, like the reports that we have where you can click on them and stuff. So, they should just look a little nicer. We were planning on integrating it with the one-step stuff a little bit, so you can kind of watch a report of combat and be paused and kind of click forward one step at a time if you want to watch that, or not one step, but until the report gets another thing in it or something. I don't know. We're gonna play around with that a little bit. We have to do that by feel a little bit to see kind of what kind of fun we can have with that. Just to get people a little more into the combat reports, which is a kind of hidden and fun part of the game. I mean, it doesn't. It's kind of hidden, I guess. There's a little thing pops up, and it's got so much information in it.
Right.
I think, like, I obviously don't speak for everybody, but in my experience, the thing that kind of annoys me about the current state of reports right now is previously when you just hit A and then you'd select the combat report that you want to see and then you'd press enter, it would just give you like the combat report and you'd scroll down. Right now you have to click on a thing and then squint at the tiny names and then click on another tiny button and then scroll all the way down to see the reports. I think it's less of a access to the information and more of a ease of reading the information once it's on screen. And then people expect you to be able to unpause the game because they can still see dwarves there and it's not that big of a menu. I think that's where a lot of the issues pop up. And then also if you close the little knight, like crossed swords icon that pops up the battle reports, if you close it, you can't
gone,
get it back.
yeah.
It's gone.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the shift. Yeah, the shift R. Because A, I don't think you could get. Could you get to reports from A? Or was it always shift R, right?
I seem to recall just hitting A for announcements, and then it would have the combat reports underneath the announcements, I think. I don't know. It's been a minute.
Yeah. But yeah, however it worked, you got to that just list of like, this is fighting, 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 this is fighting. And that's kind of what's in the cross swords, but we're going to have something, I think, I mean, there'll be a hotkey for it, but just up in that top left area where you get the siege and the diplomacy and petition light, there's possibly room for the hey, let's just interact boldly with all of the past messages. And if you right click and stuff is dismissed, don't worry about it because here they are. And you can get to kind of an announcement hub and also just press a key to pop you to the announcement hub. That'll just have our nice reports. It'll have our sequential chronological list of every kind of announcement like we had before with little dates and the zoom buttons and all that kind of stuff. I think hopefully we'll just recapture everything and it'll be quick to get to where you want to go. I'm not sure about the squinting part because the text is the same size. It should just be in a list. Mm-hmm. Hopefully good. Hopefully satisfying.
Well, that's kind of the end of my personal broad topics. Kind of trying to cover things surrounding the general developments, just to kind of get an order of operations in my head. Next, I have a collection of audience questions that I've sourced over the past week from people on YouTube and good people in Twitch chat and around the places and social media and whatnot. So the first question I have comes in from Axelo, and they say, is there a reason why we can't see nicknames in Legends mode? It's kind of hard to keep track of important creatures and their interactions when you don't remember their procedurally generated names.
Is there a reason? Was that the question?
Yeah, a reason. So I mean, yeah, I just never. I mean, when we Legends mode has this kind of like comes first feeling because it's linked to world gen, so it kind of uses all of the most kind of primitive lower down structures. But I mean, there's no reason it can't just like slap the nickname. They're all stored in the creature, I believe. Although they might not be. I mean, are they stored in just the unit file and they don't get transferred up to the historical figure? That might be one reason why it wasn't super straightforward to do. But that's a solvable problem for sure. Just copy it over to if it doesn't already, copy it over to the historical figure file or structure. Then it would just be a display option. But it just didn't.
Right. The reason would be we had more important things to do.
Or didn't think of it. As like looking at the player forts, because that's where it would come up, right? It's just when you're looking at the legend of your own fortress, and seeing like, the names of the various streamer audience members there rather than the procedural names. I mean, it makes sense for sure as a suggestion. Yeah.
Also, just sniping something out of chat real quick here. Falco is asking, why are dwarves names in different languages depending on which menu? It's because it translates between the dwarf language and our language, depending on which menu you're looking at. But
Oh yeah, I mean that's like so. There's two functions. One is called translated name, and one is called native name that I can use when I produce strings. And I don't have a strong kind of rule set for when I use one or the other, which is probably something I should have developed 20 years ago. A strong rule set for when we use translated names and when we use non-translated names. Sometimes it's just like translated names are longer and I wanted something shorter because strings were overflowing and just other random stuff like that. But yeah, it is completely kind of arbitrary how it comes up.
The next question I have here comes in from Foucs, and they say, hey, Tarn, one of my favorite parts of Dwarf Fortress is the wide variety of surreal creatures you can encounter. That being said, was it difficult to nail down the sprites for some creatures that have been up to the player's imagination for so many years? Have you always had a very specific idea of how something like a green devourer or a thripsman would appear? And was it important for the artists to reflect that vision? Thank you.
Okay, the question was for Tarn, but I'll answer it, which is all the every single one of those fantastic creatures was created in one afternoon as we scribbled onto I think it was just a regular notebook.
Yeah.
It was not graph paper. It was not sketch paper. It was a regular notebook, and it took us an afternoon, maybe, I don't know, an hour and a half or something like that to come up with all of them. And so there's pictures, and
and they had no names at first, just pictures. We just drew a bunch of pictures and then went through and decided what they were. And we rejected a few of them too. Like I don't remember which ones we rejected, but we rejected just a few of them and kept almost all of them. So the Green Devourer always looked like it did. And the image that the artist produced came, though they didn't have access to this notebook because it's buried off in some closet somewhere. We found it once and then we just put it back in the closet.
Moved,
But it still exists. But the notebook pictures were translated into the little paragraph descriptions, and then the little paragraph descriptions, like playing telephone or something, were used by the artists to produce the images.
Well, they're pretty
and
accurate.
They looked completely accurate. So it's kind of they did a good job translating those. And I don't remember directing them too specifically about how they should look. So it's like if something's like a weird humanoid with mouths on its arms, it looks a certain way, I guess.
The next audience question I have comes in from Sigma, and they say, there are currently some Dwarf Fortress translation project mods on Steam. Do you have any tips for these people working on these projects?
Just to clarify, because we were talking about in-game languages and stuff, this is a translation to real-world languages,
Real-world
right?
languages, yeah.
Yeah, and so tips, I mean, to me, it's just a really hard thing I have no idea how they're doing it. Like the procedural sentences and stuff are the reason that we have trouble even contemplating how localization would work without having a
well, there are no verbs, right? It's all just nouns, isn't it?
But they want to translate all the combat
things,
for instance, right? So it's just there's a lot of work to do, and I have no idea where to even begin. So I mean, I don't have tips really, because I don't know how it would work.
I didn't know if you were talking about the Dwarf language to English or the...
No, I'm assuming we're talking about interface stuff and all the reports, all
right, the so I don't know, the question wasn't clear.
Yeah, there's already like a partial Portuguese translation up that's like every single item, basically, like every item description has been translated with the exception of the generated ones.
And that's the trick, right? Is like that's why it's difficult for us to like say, hey, this game has been translated, because those things are going to be really hard to translate. So getting that checkbox on Steam saying like, hey, this game's translated is hard. I mean, the tips. I mean, if they're already kind of going through, and I don't know if they're altering the exe files or just the txt raw files. And so forth, because the place to start is there, because you could do those to some extent, as long as a romanization works or whatever, because we don't have a lot of displayed characters. Then after that, then you're dealing with like strings inside of the exe file, which is something that we should be putting out into the world as a text file rather than being in the exe file. But the problem there is we've bumped into generated strings, and how do we even encode that? We don't have an encoding for that. Yeah, no, I mean, when we're, if they have, it's just like when we work with the DF hack people on stuff, like if the translators all kind of, multiply run into the same problem, or there's like the same simple thing that's kind of blocking them, I mean, we'd love to hear about it, because there are things we can do to help, I'm sure.
Well, I guess if they're listening to this and they have a collective issue that they're running into, and if they can get a little group together and maybe make a Discord server or a room on a Discord server, then things can get done.
Yeah. I mean, I've got if I were gonna move some crap, like say for instance here's an example. The tooltips right now are all a bunch of hard coded strings inside the game, right? There's no reason this can't be a TXT file or something. So, like, if that kind of thing would be useful, I could just do that. But I don't know if that's useful, because I'm not sure, like, if you're translating it into, like, simplified Chinese or something, is that just useless? I have no idea. But it's probably useful for Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
At least you're not asking the game to make characters that don't exist in the game exist, as long as it's all in the same alphabet.
Yeah, although if we get like some kind of Unicode support up, then suddenly we're back in business there too, right? So yeah, I don't know. The future is bright, but also unclear.
Yes, like many things, bright but unclear. Yeah. But speaking of bright but unclear, Flint_Dragon asks, any idea when the Legends mode export button might make its way back? I know that it was mentioned that the mechanics are still there, but the button needs a graphic in the past. But I'd be happy with simple text, all or none, and that was done for Burrows. Something that is holding me back from making new forts and worlds at the moment. Yeah,
I think it's going to be in a couple days.
Okay, sweet. Probably by the time you're hearing this, Flint. That's also something I've been looking forward to and wanting to have back. Hope sooner rather than later, because it allows for so much more.
It's good business.
Next question comes in from Squid-Faced God, and they say, so far we can have goblins, experiments, elves, and humans as citizens. Are there any plans to add more races that can reside in forts, like kobolds or lizard people, etc.?
Well, I mean, all the animal people can't they?
Technically. It's just the odds of them actually joining a performance troop and then showing up.
Yeah. And and Gorlax and stuff or whatever. Like everyone loves a Gorlak. I didn't know how comprehensive their list was. It's a pretty. I mean, there's lists and lists and lists of creatures that can join. But so I guess the question is basically about the future of other intelligent races in the game. Is that kind of the question?
Yeah, kind of seems like it.
Yeah, so I don't know. We can kind of been resting on our laurels with all the animal people.
Yeah, the thing is that like if you think about it, like all the animal, like what are races in fantasy? A lot of them are just animal people, and we just haven't given them a specific culture or whatever.
Because that was one angle that we thought might work in the short term before the Magic release, is kind of just in each world playing up some animal people more than others, like having a few more historical events, because we have certain animal people historical events, like when a population gets integrated, but we could talk about that a bit more and maybe even refer to them in a special way or something, that like Argonians or whatever, right, that kind of thing, and proceduralize it a little bit. That might be fun. But then, ultimately what we're going to do is the Magic release, which just, can generate races or use animal people in specific ways and just say, hey, this is the whatever that whatever's, procedural stuff. And, and then we that's ripping the Band-Aid off and just going all for it. And then, just removing all meaning from the world.
And adding meaning to it.
Yes.
So I just want to say that I'm a big fan of the whatever that whatevers.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like,
Whatever.
Yeah, we had a little humanoid generator in the prototype, of course, and it just like, this is a little, a little short four-armed guy with antennas, and why wouldn't you have such a creature? It's not like an ant person though. It's just a little short four-armed guy with antennas.
So I sniped a question out of Twitch chat, and this one comes in from Sathados, and they say, how difficult is it to maintain? I can read. How difficult is it to maintain stability from versions to version now? It was nice. It was a nice feature that saves weren't broken from 1404, or not from 1404, 4004, all the way up to 4705. And is that the goal for the 50.xx versions going forward?
Yeah, so that part's not too hard. Save compatibility specifically is not too bad until you decide to add something interesting or some. It's always some weird thing that comes up though. Like the reason, I mean, Steam lost save compatibility because of some random thing to do with trees or something that we needed for the graphics conversion. It was just frustrating that we got so close. And now there's like no plans. Nothing that we see on the horizon that's a danger for save compatibility up until whenever the map rewrite happens. Like the map rewrite is just going to be. I don't see a way through it. We can think about it,
and then think of as many ways to cram in other save destroying improvements, and then break everything at the same time, and also keep it wide open for.
Yeah, it's just going to be. It seems like an ideal time to do it, but that's now we're talking years, so we're going to be good for some years.
Yeah, so sounds like we'll be good for the version 50s at the very least.
Oh, the 50s, yeah, sure, and depending on what the army and investigation stuff and villains finishing, if that takes us to 51 or 52 or something, we'll still be compatible. It's just whatever we say we're starting the map rewrite, we'll have to think at that time. That's going to be a good time to set up like whatever the last 50 is or whatever. Just setting that up as kind of a permanent branch on Steam so that people can play with that as long as they want until their worlds are played out and stuff. And then those of course are always available on Bay 12 as well. We always keep every version. So it should be fairly painless when it happens.
And also for anybody playing on Steam, it's very easy to just go into your Steam install and copy paste the folder directory into another file and have a copy of every version. I now have 9 versions of the premium installs. So
yeah, it's just sitting there. It's we didn't do anything with it.
Gonna have a hard drive full of stuff at some point. So this next one, I think, is talking about the odds of getting different types of were creatures, but this one comes in from Tidon, and they say, maybe this is me being unlucky, but I experience a lot of were lizard infestations that eventually claims most of my fortress. Is this misfortune or the world's RNG, or is this a bug that most were beasts I encounter are the same type of lizard?
Well, this sounds like a community science project if it hasn't already been done. Because I don't see a reason like it comes up with a list of possible creatures and it picks one.
Yeah, I think
because we see a lot.
I think you have different one. I mean, have you had? Is the question for you? It's like, have you had different were creatures in the same game? Because I think you do. I don't think it's a
because per world, like if the person's playing the same world and just playing different forts in the same world, they're going to get the same were creatures because that's what the world is. Right?
Oh yeah, that's the answer then.
Yeah. That's quite possible.
That was my suspicion when writing this one down, is that if they're playing in the same world, that's the infestation that happened, especially maybe in that faction as well. And
that's logical. Yeah,
and it's like it's one of the rare examples in the game of a world specific phenomenon that is by the time we get to the Magic release, that will be something that feels more like the flavor of the world, where now you can't tell the difference between flavor and a bug.
Unfortunate, yes.
Yeah.
Unless it's literally a bug, in which case it's bug flavor.
That's right. Although, the sadness of the they're like all vertebrates, right? The were creatures. which is, a design decision that becomes more questionable with each passing moment. Because, like, why can't you have
where crustaceans?
Where crustaceans? Yeah, everything's supposed to turn into crabs anyway. So where are were crabs?
Oh man, it's like you turn magic all the way up to maximum on the mythical magic slider, and then all you get is crabs.
Yeah, just big glowing crabs and other types of crabs. Yeah, mud crabs and everything.
That's like one step away from Cthulhu tentacles, so we're pretty close.
Yeah.
This next question comes in from Elfie Bean, and she asks, since all the current art assets are labeled vanilla, does that mean that there are plans for allowing user-generated texture packs and tile sets without the use of DFHack?
Yeah. The right now, I'm really frustrated and annoyed by how little I got to do with that. How everything's 32 by 32. How all the text is assumed to be 8 by 12, and there's assumptions throughout the code that I just marked up. They're all marked up where these assumptions are, but I didn't get to like a kind of mod loading thing that let you set the dimensions that you want and let you reset the dimensions of the tiles so that you don't have to be in 32 by 32 graphical and 8 by 12 text. And there's just some annoying headaches to work through there, mainly with how they play with each other. It's not like independently, it's not too hard to do each one, but when you've got text overriding, like or those like when you're looking at a list of creatures, for instance, and it puts the tile of the creature to the left, and then it shows the name. Those are the two tile sets playing with each other, right? So their dimensions have to be compatible in some way. And so if you wanted to use like 16 by 16 text and 24 by 24 textures for the graphics part, then those have to play completely differently than when you're doing 8, which divides in 4 times into 32 rather than like 1.5 or whatever. So I just need to do a little math, a little list crap, and then we can overcome this problem. But that's we want to be able to support that in the game.
So since we're kind of on the subject, I'm going to insert a little addition to that question and say, when are we going to be able to zoom in ASCII?
Yeah, well, right now, apparently, the tutorial is completely broken if you can't, right? You can't even get through the tutorials, what I just heard recently.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because the zoom button doesn't work and you can't advance the tutorial.
Oh.
I was like, well, yeah. I was like, wait, that's probably right. Whoops.
Right. Doesn't the tutorial tell you to zoom in and out at some point?
Yeah. So that's yeah. So these are all part of the same problem now that increased in urgency. I probably won't try and tackle it in the next few days for 5008, but it jumped up on my 5009 list pretty sharply.
Well, that's good to know that we'll be able to zoom in ASCII sooner rather than later. I don't know. I guess the majority of the people who would play like DF Classic and ASCII wouldn't even run the
They
tutorial.
just don't use the tutorial. Yeah, they just don't run the tutorial. So it's it's funny what kind of things can slip under the radar that are so crucial. But yeah.
Wow. Okay. This next one I really like, which comes in from Urist McZookeeper. And they say, how are different animal species distributed across the world maps during world generation? Is there a way to tell which species will inhabit a particular location prior to embarking, apart from checking the biome to get a general idea?
I don't think there's a way you can check, but that's how it works, though, right? Is it distributes them according to their biome, but it for each like if it's flood fills out a forest or whatever, because forests are interesting because they comprise many biomes, right? Or they could possibly have multiple biomes within them. Like you could go from a taiga all the way down to a tropical rainforest in one continuous forest, right? And it all gets the same name of like the whatever forest. And so it looks at all the possible biomes inside the forest, and then it picks a certain number of species for each biome that it needs to support. and then adds them to the populations for that forest. So you don't get every single one, especially if you have a lot available. If you only have a few available, you'll get them in every single one. But if you have like 100 rainforest predators or something available, then it'll only pick a few for each forest. And then it also makes sure, I believe, I hope I'm right about this. I think that every animal gets used. So if you're at the end and it hasn't used an animal, it'll put it in some biome somewhere, like at the end. But you don't have access to those lists. I think in one of the legend export utilities, or the export utility we had, that it doesn't actually export them by region. It just shows the total animal population, but it gets that by adding up the region population. So the information's sitting right there. It's just not visible. I don't think there's an easy way to tell until you embark, and it tells you which creature may be eating your dwarfs. Then you get one window in the biome, and that's it until the things start wandering on the side of the map.
I can't say that the creature that it warns me that's going to come eat me is ever actually a creature that shows up.
Yeah, I think it's pulling the biome, but if it's not, then yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I think it does, though. But
like I need to look at what my most recent one was, but like I vividly remember like settling on a glacier and getting and this was like on like the last version, I think version 07, I think 507, and it said ere the Yetis get hungry, and not a single Yeti showed up. We did get giant kangaroos. There was giant undead coyotes. There was giant crabs. We had all kinds of great things, but it warned us about Yetis.
Yeah, well, at least that sounds right?
Yeah,
for a glacier. So I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure what it's pulling. Like, I don't think it's pulling the master list, though. I really think it pulls the populations that are local, but maybe they didn't get translated to the local because there's another level of localness. Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a bug in the game. There's sometimes bugs.
No, it's never bug. It's all by design.
Since we were talking about like ASCII and priorities, and things that are kind of making the game difficult for some people, is there any plans to incorporate like fully keyboardless controls once again? Like, are we still working towards that, or is that something that's just kind of in the bin currently?
Wait, you said fully what? Keyboard-less?
For fully keyboard centric, mouseless gameplay.
Mouseless. Yeah. No, that's still the plan. Still the same annoyance of figuring out how to do keyboard focus on menus and stuff like that. But that is a goal to do that. And we're gonna
menus or something again.
Yeah, and you're gonna need but the thing is, it's not gonna work unless you like literally have like a little focus box that moves up and down.
Tab arrow key maybe or something.
Yeah, I mean you need it in your scroll lists and everything, right? Like a little lit up box everywhere you go, because like those menus are not simple, never were. And it's essentially a re-implementation of the hell we were trying to get away from. But I know some people need to be in that place.
Well, I mean, like I can edit videos almost entirely using my keyboard in Adobe by tabbing between different menus. So I think that there is like some usability. Like I think the perfect world for me, at least as somebody who plays games, is having enough keyboard support that I can access almost every menu from the keyboard, but also be able to click things. Like,
definitely. Yeah, there's definitely
like both. So
the middle ground we have not attained. We have not attained a keyboard plus mouse game. We're not there. That's easier to reach, and like you say, it's going to be more important for more people. But there's a segment of the community that wants the mouse, not even
want to set the mouse on fire and throw it out a window.
Yeah, the poor thing. But and then we're back to the question of like we need to be able to open up the info menu and get to the food restrictions menu and be able to go over and select cave wheat and say do not brew this with the keyboard, and that requires focus and such, and little lit up things.
The big stickler that I keep bumping into that I wish had a hotkey is the when you go to construct a wall and then it asks if you want to use the nearest one or select from the menu. I wish that I could swap between those two with a hotkey.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially, and that's especially like sinful in the sense that was a newer edition, and really should have had a hotkey. We're gonna try and like as we go forward in adventure mode, we're gonna try and not like dig this ditch deeper, and try and go mouseless and keyboardless on adventure mode.
Awesome.
As we go through with it. Because need to, and that'll probably get us some legs on it too. Like when we're going through the character creator, and you can do it with the keyboard or something, especially with like the personality facet selector and the other crap that's buried in the in adventure mode. Like that'll get us some tools we need. Hopefully, generalizable tools for other menus.
The next audience question I have here comes in from, I'm gonna probably butcher this one, Arafair, I think is how you say that. And they say, will there be any updates to the focus and needs system specifically regarding temples? It's not a significant portion of dwarves, a not significant portion of dwarves end up with very poor focus due to having trouble praying, as often as needed. Even micromanaged temples, many late-game forts eventually end up with a ton of polytheistic dwarves with many gods who can't possibly pray to them all with how the system currently works. I know the general answer is it probably doesn't matter that much and flood them with good memories, etc. But as an obsessive min-maxer, there is an issue here, and I would like to at least have the ability to potentially solve, even if it's not technically a worry in normal gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I think like they say, not the highest priority thing, but it is just kind of a simulation issue, an AI issue, and it's kind of stupid how they have that.
Yeah, it does seem like
that giant exclamation point, and that they can't get away from that. They should just be able to go to one of those. Maybe for their most devout one, they should go to that one's temple, and then they should also hit up the general purpose temple that's not consecrated, and they could just do all the others, right? In some kind of like a thing that doesn't give them as happy a thought, but also fulfills the need, right? That they're like, oh, and also I'm going to read my other 10 gods' names, especially because the number of gods goes up, right? As they cross-pollinate their religious beliefs, people become more interesting over time. So that sounds like one of these things that we should keep in our bucket of quality of life for sure. And it does, it is not good the way it is now.
I think for me, because at the very least, in version 47 and older versions, I barely ever worried about stuff like that, but now that it's like just so present, like on the dwarves like little character sheet screen where it just says unmet need, it's like now that it's right there and in front of all players' faces, it's like unless you're digging into previously it was like unless you're digging into Dwarf Therapist, you're not gonna see that.
There's all sorts of stuff like that popped up.
Yeah, we did. I mean, it's good because it means that it's surfacing more stuff. But for players especially that are like want the game to direct them a little bit and give them a little bit of focus, and that's the focus it's giving them. It's like you should meet the needs of all your dwarves, and then it gives you an unsolvable problem. That's kind of stupid.
Yeah. The next question comes in from T-Don, and they ask, how deep is the simulation in regards to cultural spread and conversation and changes through time? Is it only simulated through the addition of new sites, through warfare, or by slaver or reagents and deities? What is your vision for the game in this regard? I mean, that last addition there is a bit of a wide question, but I guess how deep is the simulation of cultural spread throughout the game?
It's a weird. The like it gets implemented in really specific ways, right? Because there's the books that can have values encoded in them, and then people can read them and have their values shifted. There's the arguments that people can have. that can do similar things, but those only happen in certain contexts. And then, so that's the value shift works in some weird specific ways through weird vectors. And then there's the religious spread with the shrine system and the dominant government system and the expulsions and all of that stuff is very detailed. Every historical figure tracked, every site population given is kind of tracked through the different places it's been, and they can be resentful about things that have happened to them. And then whenever a new population arrives at a location that has a certain religious profile, it'll start to build up shrine credit so that when so that it starts to spread its influence out for when prophets and other people are created. And prophets also have these effects. Pilgrims spreading these things around. There's this huge numeric system kind of tracking all these numbers and going through. But the shrine numbers can also be decreased and destroyed during the expulsions and stuff. That's all pretty detailed. Like when you get to adventure mode and you see a shrine with the dice and stuff like that, that shrine is there for a reason that could be a couple hundred years of history and who lived on the site and stuff, and you just can't you can't talk to anybody and feel that connection, except that some of them might say, hey, praise that god or whatever, but that's because they're drawn from a site population that has that history.
Right. Well, the adventure mode, like I keep hitting the same note that adventure mode is going to bring a lot of this stuff to the front.
Yeah, that's it, and hopefully we can continue to improve the exposition to get some of that out there, because it's a
well, we need the input from the players is really going to help us with stuff like that.
I can't wait till this, like the mass of players that are currently playing Fortress mode and poking into Legends mode and kind of exploring the game, who are asking for features that would very much be fixed by adventure mode. I'm very curious to see what the response to, oh man, this world is a lot bigger than I initially anticipated kind of situation is going to look like, because there's something kind of magical about, spending a dozen hours or so building a fortress and then just being able to walk out of it. It sounds cheesy, but it's kind of true.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah, what I said to the PC gamer or whatever is that it will blow your mind. I think it will.
Yeah. No, I think it's.
I don't think I was.
No.
I don't think I was misunderstanding or missaying that.
I mean, it's gonna blow somebody's mind, that's for sure. Anybody who hasn't played adventure mode before. The next question comes in from E, and they say, in raiding and raising missions and battles in general, what determines a positional advantage?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I'd be damned if I remember. I think because there is this skill, like there's these military skills, like the tactician skill and stuff, and I think they roll dice at each other. I think they're rolling skill dice at each other.
That is coming up. With adventure mode, the army stuff is coming up and will be revised. A lot of this stuff will be improved and
explained.
Yeah.
I mean, the combat system's so bad in general, though. Just the way it has to kind of take. Here's 1 person versus 10 person, or here's 10 people versus 10 people from the non-historical groups, and it just kind of throws little groups at each other, and then they get a benefit based on the positional advantage. Like, it just changes all the dice rolls. Just there's something, about like not having the geometry of what's going on that's going to be fixed when we throw in a little geometry.
Yeah, I right now I guess kind of imagine the fights just being like 2 long lines of soldiers on like a 2D plane, like a Super Mario Brothers level, just like bumping into each other, and then whoever runs out of soldiers first or just happens to have the best soldiers wins. But I much prefer the headcanon of everybody just lining up and rolling dice and then just voluntarily falling over.
Yeah, I mean it's a special system. There's a few things about special attacks and whether or not you can resist fire versus whether you have a fire attack and all this stuff. We tried to make the strength, like doing a strength, like an abstract strength calculation for something like a dragon. Like, how do you do that, right? Because they can just kill everything except certain things that are immune to being killed by them or whatever, and then maybe just sit there and like bonk on each other for 200 years or whatever. I don't know. It's difficult.
So the next user question comes in from Shag, and they ask, how do you feel about adding slavery or taming troglodytes and / wild humanoids as beasts of labor in the future?
Right? Why would a dwarf do that?
Yeah,
that's goblin stuff.
Yeah,
even like the goblins themselves are slaves in a way to the demons, and why would you do that?
Yeah. A dwarf values work. I mean,
they value their own
labor. Because you imagine taking because we were talking about prisoners of war, right? Not having to kill every goblin, like being able to get them, maybe exchange them or something. And obviously, people just throw them in the magma and stuff with the current caged ones they have now. But would a dwarf take like 20 goblins and say like, hey, go work in the mines? Like what about the dignity of mining that like the dwarf would experience? That's why it's not an imaginable thing for them. Like, it's just like treating work like that. Now, yeah, I mean, the broader question, we have humans enslaving humans already in the game, and when people are like modding human fort mode, are we gonna support that with mechanics? You can do the brain exercise of what those mechanics would be and how far we should go with that and what kind of stuff that's going to create. And also look at where the game is already and how messed up it is.
Shame on you, really. Yeah. Shame on you.
Yeah. Shame on us too for already, going down the road. So we'll see what happens. But not with the dwarves.
No shame on the dwarves.
So this next question comes in from totally not a Dark Goblin spy. Probably here to steal our artifacts, frankly. And they say, hello, highly appreciate the work the Dwarf Fortress devs have done so far. Are there any plans about making the foreign equipment usable and craftable for the dwarves?
Yeah, so like, would they be able to make a? Well, this is what.
There was a. We were thinking about the style of. Well, there's the foreign thing, right? But
yeah, like a scimitar or something they actually hold, as opposed to like a maul or something that I don't know if a dwarf can even hold that right now.
It's too big for them. I know they can can like hold and wield whips and like flails and stuff, but they can't.
Yeah, and then they can't make them. So yeah, it's like, should they be able to? Yeah, it's like the foreign clothes. I mean, if they seen one. A dwarf should be able to figure it out, probably, sure. But before it was a thing where we didn't have the colors for it, because like, what color is a dwarf that is wielding one of these in between weapons that they haven't seen before, like a dagger dwarf. Like, what color is the dagger dwarf? But now they'd just be holding a dagger and you'd see it in their hand, right? And in classic mode, we would just be like, boldly, you go with the swords dwarf color, right? Like, we just have to start making decisions to go for it, in classic.
Right, like a G is a goblin and
like, we've already crossed
we're already beyond that.
And if a player opts in to the dagger lifestyle, then sure, they can eat the ambiguities. So yeah, I mean, it's a we didn't have specific plans for it. These things kind of come in organically over time. Like when we had humans suddenly become residents of the fort, we've been slowly dealing with the fact of making their clothing. It's still annoying, but it's I think theoretically possible to do that. Do those controls still work?
Yeah, you can still make like human-sized clothing or whatever size clothing quite easily.
So you should be able to. Yeah, so you should have a dwarf should be able to make like a halberd for a human or whatever, right? So that the human can wield something like that. That's a reason you should be able to have them. You should be able to, if you have some big modded humanoid, you should be able to make like giant sword or something like that. Like that's sized for it's kind of a weird problem the game's always had, right? Is that like weapons have an absolute size and clothing has a relative size and armor has a relative size, right? So it's you don't have like swords sized for a giant, which would be fun, of course, to have them coming in like some kind of Dark Souls boss with a 50-foot sword and just chopping through
Like
everybody.
Berserk.
Yeah, that would be cool. And we don't have the game's not set up like that to respect relative sizes of objects for weapons, or everything. I mean, just the clothing, right? But like, should there be like a giant sized barrel and stuff like that, for giant houses? And it just hasn't been that game because it's always kind of centered on fortresses, dwarf fortresses. But yeah. So I think it's kind of an organic add. Over time, I wouldn't be surprised, but when, who knows? It's been 10 years.
I love
years.
the idea of a giant wielding a sword the size of a toothpick.
Yeah, because that's how it is with the socks, right? Basically, they rip off your socks and then bludgeon you to death with them. But what does that even look like? It's like they're just holding them between their two little fingers and just going. It's like that's kind of yeah.
I one of my favorite moments ever was a were creature that ran into my fort and punched a dwarf in the face, stole his hat, and then didn't bite anybody and just whipped everybody with the cap.
Yeah, it's good for continued fort survival. I mean, unless they killed you. Yeah.
For that cap.
Dignity.
So this is kind of a further off in the future question from Transfem, and they say, after the villains update is finished and the magic and law get implemented, is cooking next on the list, or is that further down? I'd love to see some standard and exotic cooking techniques implemented. I think it would be funny to feed dwarves forgotten beast fritters fried up in fluffy Wambler pudge served on a bed of juienned valley herbs. I'm not even sure what that word is.
Yeah, well, yes, and that is one of the subtle problems with the implementation of the recipes is that I am not a world-renowned chef nor a locally renowned chef.
Usually what we do is get some beginner manual and then study it for a month or weeks and then put in our misunderstood faux expertise into the game. And
and eventually someone will be able to pass a cooking 101 class at college because of the game. And we'll get there, but we had that planned, right? We were going to do recipes, procedural recipes, and procedural games like card games, dice games, and stuff.
Who knows? Maybe with the multi-track. The multi-track phases or versions that get merged. We could go off on a tangent like we used to.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, all of our other little RPG side projects always centered around being able to play cards in the tavern and get into bar fights. And
it's true.
And we
just like all games of the '80s had poker. I think that was the same thing.
Yeah. So we need. I mean, we had a reason we wanted to do that, and then it got put off because we had to release or whatever nonsense back when we did the original Taverns release. So it falls into that list of 40 other things, which is a thing we didn't finish that we intended to do. So it kind of falls outside of the main track of villains, army, magic, and then start scenarios, and then economy/boats of the main release track. And well, the more we think about it, the more we're tempted. So we will be careful.
Yeah, that is like the thing that we're going to try to do moving forward is to get away from the arcs, like the villain arc and the magic arc and stuff like that, and instead put in different sections of each as they became more appropriate.
Yeah, if it's possible. The only thing stopping us from having a kind of more satisfying and organic approach is the damn map rewrite.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the one big thing that needs to happen before smaller things can come in consistently, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a tricky. I gotta see. I mean, the hope is that the branching Git system is gonna let us do this do things more piecemeal. But I have to talk to Putnam. They have more experience with this stuff. But like with the map rewrite, like is the merge, like if I have an ongoing kind of 9-month map rewrite project while we're doing other stuff, is that going to be like the merge from hell, or is that going to be, you know, just hey, pop, bam, all of it works? Probably somewhere in between. But it's got to be planned. You got to think about that carefully.
We have another question from Shag, and this one actually is kind of on topic. Will wrestling competitions stay a world gen feature, or will we get some kind of arena zone for use in both active game modes? Players have been making unofficial arenas for a long while, so that might be neat if the dwarves or if they gave the dwarves a mood buff from watching an exciting match rather than stressing them out. Also, a part of me really wants to run around challenging random people to wrestling matches in adventure mode.
Yeah, we had a whole arc of the duelist for adventure mode where we're going to do that kind of thing, but also with duels that were not sports competitions. And in fort mode, like the trick with the games, like because there's also like the crossbow throwing competition and stuff like that, right? Which you could do that, and it's like you can see the road to implementation there. And yeah, it's just one of those things, like one of those many world gen things that didn't make it in to it's just like a check we wrote and haven't made good on it yet. And you can see the implementation there now. You just set up a zone, right? And you can set up a or you set up a location called like I don't know, an arena or a Coliseum. It'd be like a location with multiple zones because you'd have the spectator zones and then you'd have the play area. Like, so you could set it. I mean,
just like the tavern and the rooms.
Yeah, exactly. Like with the tavern, and you can set up chairs or like a big bench system, and you can even have a dining hall so people could sit there and like eat food while they're watching people throw crossbows and stuff.
See, this is the kind of thing we get this kind of wild hair, and then it would suddenly be in the game.
It would suddenly be in the game, wouldn't it?
See, I love that idea, especially because of like the thing that we were talking about earlier with the unmet needs. Like, there's a lot of dwarves that would be absolutely horrible in the military, like based on like their like thoughts and preferences. But at the same time, they want martial training, so it would be great to just have a zone where they could just go casually get martial training occasionally, and get socked in the forehead and feel good about it, and then go drink, and not actually have to put them into a squad.
Yeah. I mean,
the side result to that would be every time a fight did break out, half the fort would die.
Yeah, and there's like those commemorative ceremonies, right? Those yearly like processions and stuff they do in World Gen 2. So you'd want to set up like a parade ground or parade route. Like, this is the designated parade route for our fortress, and then people would get up on one side and then walk to the other side. But the parades also specify things like candles and stuff that don't even exist in the game, I think. So there's certain obstacles, but we don't need to do it all. We could just do the procession, and then you could also declare new holidays and stuff, like when you beat a siege back or something, or kill a dragon or a forgotten beast or something. You could have like a window to declare a holiday that you can then have an annual celebration, and so add new ones, because you can add new ones in World Gen. So you should be able to add new ones in the fort, and then you set the parade ground and you set the feast hall and that kind of stuff, and giant boosts to everyone's happiness and so forth. So I mean, yeah, it's all just sitting there, right?
It's like the Miners Guild is petitioning for a celebratory holiday of a pick throwing competition in the tavern, and this is going to happen in the first of spring of every year, and that also coincides with the day that the goblins siege you, and then that's how your fortress falls, because your military was too busy trying to swap between picking up and throwing picks to go pick up their swords, and then suddenly you wonder, do I actually want this?
Yeah. No, I mean, we do the
a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's there are quite a few things.
I have another audience question from James, and they say, can dwarves be made to jump down from trees if they find themselves stuck in one? My dwarves constantly get themselves stuck up in a tree from attacking wildlife and have to be rescued. It makes surviving in savage areas much more tedious and micromanagement heavy than it needs to be.
Yeah, it's basically a bug at this. I mean, it's been a bug, but it's basically even more of a bug at this point because they're supposed to have a timer. There's a timer that sits there when they're stranded and they haven't been able to get where they're able to go, especially if they're in a tree. That counts down, and then they're supposed to do acrobatic flood to move to a different connected component of the map. Don't seem to be working. So just gotta look at a save, go into their brain with a scalpel, and fix it because it's been happening. It feels like it's been happening more. Maybe since the agitation from the savage regions or something. But yeah, it feels like it's been happening even worse.
I would follow up with James's question and ask, why the heck are your dwarves outside if you're in a savage biome?
No, it's a question about bravery, I think.
Very brave dwarves, I suppose. I mean, maybe they're just building an above ground city. I mean, maybe the heavy aquifer is too much to get through.
Yeah, gotta chop down all the trees to get everyone agitated for sure.
It's a valid concern. This next question comes in from Lucid, and they're a little blunt about it, which I think is kind of funny, which is, will there ever be a way to teach my dwarves swimming without being a total scumbag about it? It would be cool to have some designated area for civilian training where dwarves can practice climbing and swimming, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
maybe the same wrestling fight club area for the martial arts people. They can make a what's that called? A track. Boot camp obstacle course.
Yeah, because there's the foot races, right? Is another one of those. The foot race is another one of those world gen competitions, and then there's the general thing about schooling as well, like the guilds doing skill demonstrations, and the stuff that's missing from that. And so this is like a civic responsibility. I remember taking swim classes as a kind of a city thing. Like it was through some kind of city swimming pool thing. I don't remember who was running it, and we're missing a whole sort of like, should you be able to teach dwarves bookkeeping or something, or appraisal or something? Like, is there the side that is not gilded up, the side that's not military? There's this kind of this civilian side of the fortress that if you as a fortress leader think you need swimming, then maybe
the parents could teach their children things or something.
Yeah, someone teaches somebody how to swim. Then they need leisure time or something with their kids.
So what you're saying is that if I waterboard the parents so that they learn how to swim, they'll teach their kids, so I don't need to waterboard the kids as well?
Yeah, I'm not sure that gets you out of the scumbag territory that we're worried about, but
well, 4 generations down, it doesn't. But like right now, if you want to teach your dwarves swimming, the best way to do it is to lock them in a room and then take a pump and pump water into the room until they're almost drowning.
Yeah, no, that's the hard knocks life of being a dwarf in a fortress in this game.
I mean, they're not drowning; they're just gurgling. I don't know.
Yeah, it's because you got to get those little feet off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is. They won't swim if they're not floating.
Since we were talking about trees a moment ago and climbing out of them, something that I've seen a lot recently is people having dwarves die to falling trees. And from what because like previously it used to be like if like trees would fall away from the dwarves, right? So it was pretty safe to cut down trees. But there was a problem for a bit there where like logs would land on a tree next to the tree instead of landing on the ground, and then another dwarf would go to chop down the new tree, and there was a log that just happened to be directly above them, which would crush them when it would come down because it would just go straight down instead of falling forward. That doesn't seem to happen too much now. What seems to happen now is you'll chop down a tree and it'll be supported by the trees around it. And instead of turning into logs, it'll just stay a full tree with no support whatsoever. And then when you chop down the trees that are holding it up, it counts as a cave-in, which kills dwarves.
Oh, that sounds just buggier. Because it should when you chop down a tree, it should get rid of the tree in question. That sounds like some kind of flood fill error. That sounds like an actual error.
Okay, because I've definitely seen that, and I figured I'd mention it because I just saw it go by in the
because cave-in stuff is you shouldn't get these cave-ins are bad. I don't like any of the cave-ins that we get. So yeah, that actually does sound like just a legit new bug, or maybe not new, but newly surfaced or something.
I have another audience question kind of about future magic stuff from Mifha Rod, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And they say, I had a question involving the far future in regards to the magic update. I have this dream of exploring a world as a human wizard, very Gandalf-like, with insanely strong magic at my disposal in adventure mode. Again, I understand it's going to be a very, very long time before anything like that happens, but I feel like games, specifically RPG games that involve magic, never really feel like you've ascended past the normal magic user that throws fireball into something and more powerful, like meteor strength fireballs that can change landscapes, maybe even something more divine-like. Just some thoughts, and I had, as I am excited for adventure mode and the stories that can come from it. I guess the question kind of boils down to, will you be able to be a world-altering wizard in adventure mode?
I think you'll be closer to that in this game than you would be to lightning bolt.
Yeah,
+3 or whatever.
Yeah. No, we came out of various.
We've done like a lot of scouring through various books and games and everything to come up with better ideas for this.
And even Larn let you do that when you got to level 25, level 26. It just started giving you random powers, like being able to walk through walls and stuff. It was just fun. We understand the fun of being overpowered. I mean, the kind of the idea we had at first was to have you explore being the agent of a powerful wizard to make sure that their plots made sense, and then to kind of build you beyond that. But that was a while ago, and now things have kind of changed to the point where we're just like, it would, before we do the magic release, we could add a god mode where you're playing a god. We could do that first to try and deal with, world change stuff. There's just...
Yeah, the magic stuff is a lot closer also than I think.
Yeah, it's like, it's just, there's so many different ways we can get at it. And we're kind of circling this map rewrite and seeing like different ways we can circumvent, look around it, while still recognizing that it's gonna get us where we need to go eventually. It has to come in. I would expect some powerful options and some strangeness to happen a little sooner than you expect.
And that's something that I'm very excited for, to be honest, is strangeness. I like strangeness. I've got a question here from Baka Glass, and this one's kind of like the opposite of like looking towards the future. It's more looking towards the past, but they ask, did you ever consider putting some kind of alchemy into Dwarf Fortress, such as anti-were creature potion or something like that?
Yeah, we did. We had the alchemist skill, and we had an alchemist shop prior to release. Did they ever release? I don't think they ever released, but the tokens were set aside there, and we had that gnome blight, and you can still get that, right? I don't know if you can actually apply it from the kobold bulb. You can extract gnome blight, but is it impossible to put on a gnome?
There were vials before.
Yeah. You could take the glass vial, and you could store that stuff, and then. But I don't think it was possible to actually code anything with it, like code a weapon trap with it or get it on the ground, because if it touches a gnome, they immediately rot to nothing. I believe that still works if you can actually get it onto their skin. And then we were going to kind of go from there. And now, of course, where we're at is like, oh yeah, we'll just be procedurally generating alchemy systems rather than hard coding anything. And just see when that happens.
I've never encountered gnome blight. I don't know how one would. Someone once was saying that if you can get a barrel filled with it due to barrels being full of random things, and a gnome could drink it and die. But I outside of that, I've never encountered.
Yeah, have you harvested, or can you pick kobold bulbs from outside? Will they even pick them? Or have you seen a kobold bulb?
I wouldn't have noticed, I don't think.
Yeah, because I think the pipeline exists, but I don't know at what point it may or may not break down. But once you get it, I don't think you'll be able to use it outside of I mean, adventure mode to give you a higher chance, but which would be cruel because this adventure mode guy running around like putting gnome blight on his finger trying to wrestle a gnome or whatever. I mean, it's like that's the game we wrote, you know.
It's the game we wrote and the game we got, not the game we necessarily wanted, but it's the game we deserve.
Yeah, that's the game we deserve. The game David the Gnome deserves.
So I always like to throw one or two like unrelated to Dwarf Fortress questions in, and this question popped up in a couple of different formats, mostly related to being implemented into the game. So it's a popular subject. In fact, it's come up in the chat in the last hour. But this person asked it in a non-Dwarf Fortress related context, so I'm going to ask it, and it comes in from Star and Snow, and they ask, how do you feel about the recent advancements in AI, and what effect do you think it'll have on software in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's out of my whatchamacallit. If you're just talking about like the chat bots and the image production and stuff, I mean, you know, people that are more informed than I am have talked about that, and I'd probably just be regurgitating opinions.
Right. Yeah, I've heard everything from it'll make the world stupider to it's the most dangerous technology that's ever been invented. So I don't know where in that spectrum it actually lands, or yeah, we just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we can only relate to it, you know, in terms of what we think we could use it for, you know, in video games. And right now, it's, I mean, you can see people like the Cuds would use it to write books and stuff, right? And we know Brian is super into like Mid-Journey, Caves of Cud. Is like super into image generation and stuff, and you can see how the map generation, you could do map generation, messing around with stuff like that. But for us, it's like the output is kind of uncontrolled and doesn't have metadata on it, so it's not as useful to us. We like to understand our outputs so that we can use them as inputs, basically. Mm-hmm. And that makes it way less useful for us. But you know, there may be some case where that kind of stuff comes up. Of course, the computing power is not something we have access to either. So just kind of watching from the outside right now. It hasn't, you know, ruined the forum or anything. So that's kind of the things people worry about, is just a proliferation of bots and more capable scammers and stuff. But like, we already don't answer our phone or anything, right? So it's like just kind of watching it go forward. I mean, it is kind of a rawly impressive thing to see the images that are generated.
Particularly the images. Yeah, it brings back memories to me of like when the internet was first invented.
And just seeing things other people had made for the first time, kind of thing.
Yeah, just like the technology itself, just saying, "Wow, this is
just going like, hey, wow, yeah." It's not like the artistically, they're not like composing them great or anything, right? So you can kind of tell. You know, bots have a very specific way of composing images, but the fact that it does it at all, I mean, it's kind of super cool to look at. You know, and then of course you said, you know, all the ethical questions, copyright, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a big old thing.
Big old thing indeed. Then this question, which I think is possibly the most controversial and important subject that we've discussed in this entire stream so far. This comes in from Renfield, and they say, could you clarify once and for all, what is the currency in Dwarf Fortress called? Silver? Gold? Dwarf bucks? Dwarfaroonies? I want a canon answer.
Oh, no, we had... it was Golden Skulls, I think, is the one.
From the stories?
From the stories, yeah.
From the stories, it was Golden Skulls. Informally, it's Dwarf bucks. And I like it when people call them turtles, though, or whatever, because they have the little turtle.
Yeah, it's better.
The golden turtles. Yeah. Obviously, it's going to be procedural when we actually get to it. We already have the procedural coin generator, right? But the it doesn't actually give the currency denominations and names or anything, but it will,
Right now, it just says like faction name, coin of year,
yeah,
whatever, with image and image on either side, which is
yeah.
a good way to do it, I think. But
yeah. But just coming up with some name. I mean, part of the problem is we don't have like a nonsense name generator that still fits the language, because it's much more dangerous to do that because you can't filter it for like English words and stuff, right? So yeah, because like we can, when we made the dwarf language, we could also make sure that like the word didn't just say like shit or something, right? So but if we wanted to use the dwarven syllable maker to generate new words, then your muddy would just be called like, golden shits or whatever. And that's why we use for first names, even though first names are supposed to be kind of nonsense, we just use dwarven words, right? Mm-hmm. Like Urist is dagger, but it never translates it. Because it's supposed to feel more like an abstract word in the dwarven language than the actual meaningful word, or that it was sort of derived or drifted over time. We haven't done anything with that, just because of these real world contacts that you need to avoid.
Yeah, because it's going to come up so many times. It's going to be annoying if it's something stupid.
Yeah, so coming up with currency names, we'll probably end up just doing it the same way. So you'd have like Urists in one world, and then have Kogans in the other or something, and maybe we can work around that, or maybe just use English words too, So,
So at this point, I'm kind of running a little bit thin on audience questions. I've kind of hit the end of my list. So I guess like my question now is, because people are going to ask me this for the next until it's out. Do we have a rough timeline for adventure mode? As like when you think it might be out at this point, or is time just subjective?
We're still shooting for the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, I mean maybe some beta will happen by the end of the year, maybe. Or something.
Yeah, because we've just got to get through our list,
I mean, the thing is that the game is already created. It's sitting there. It's in ASCII. And a lot of the graphics are already done because they were made in dwarf mode. So it's really attainable, I think. Yeah. We want to make it better, though, is a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to...
But we will be doing that along with at the same time that the artists are advancing their part. Mm-hmm. So it really does seem possible.
Yeah, I mean, the baseline part of it, I mean, what do we have to do? Conversations, character creator, the combat stuff, all the inventory management.
Complete the villains part.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. If we're also doing any of the additions, then that's a much bigger thing, right? So that's.
But we want to do that because we want to make an impressive.
Yeah, it's got
to have an impact.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah,
it's worthwhile.
Yeah. So, but then the thing is with the baseline, you also have to. We had just thought about this, not too long ago. Is there's also stuff like the being able to build a cabin option and stuff that already exists, right? And that's like a whole interface thing. It's like,
yeah, well, I mean, dwarf mode. I mean, we didn't put everything that's in dwarf mode.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
do we pick some cans to kick down the road that look like that, right? So yeah. That's where the time uncertainty comes from.
Well, I'm honestly, I've been kind of just working under the assumption that 1 year after you start working on it is about when it will come out. And up until this point, I've just kind of assumed that nothing has really been started on adventure mode. And like you said earlier in this conversation that having a meeting with the artists on Monday, I think, in a few days.
Yeah.
So in my head, that's when adventure mode development starts. So your timeline versus my brain, we'll see which wins.
Yeah, no, that's legit though. No, we got no problem with you considering May 1st, adventure mode has started.
Except that, like I was saying, the game exists already. The game exists, and it took us 3 years. And you got to take out the snafu that happened. So it took 3 years to do the art for Fortress mode. It's not going to take 3 years to do the art for Adventure mode because all that already exists. All the real world trees, all the ramps, that took a long time.
Yeah,
All the ramps and
those
stuff are already
animals,
done.
all the just
All the
regular
animals,
yeah.
like all that stuff is already done. So it's gonna be sooner than you think, I think.
Yeah, it's just down to these interface, which interface stuff we're gonna do, and then what kind of extra stuff do we feel like we need, and yeah, yeah. So and what we're doing, yeah, how life hits it's strange, not dwarf stuff, you know.
Right. It's just the adventure mode. Yeah, I mean, like it's been described as not even being a game at this point, and that needs to change.
Yeah, because it's super cool as a thing.
Yeah, being able to walk around the world and that whole blow your mind thing, I think it works, but it's still, in order to be a game, it needs.
Yeah,
we need to complete some stuff. We need to rework some things.
Yeah, I mean, facing 600,000 people with the RPG tag, and that's really not what it is right
now. Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like it has to be good, so it's going to take a little work.
But yeah, hopefully there's some path forward on that doesn't involve finishing all the villains and army stuff, because that's what we thought of as our how to make this an RPG.
Yeah. Well, I mean, RPG also means a very different thing right now than it did 2 decades ago. So it's one of those fun words where it's like, well, what exactly is an RPG currently? But
yeah. It's So this is we're grappling with this, but yeah, we'll continue to have these conversations. I'm sure we'll be talking to you at some point in the future when we've actually put some work into the new interface, and we'll have a much clearer idea then of how we're feeling about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the timeline of like maybe by the end of the year, fingers crossed, if not, maybe slip into next year. I think that's absolutely faster than I think some people in the chat and myself were expecting. So,
yeah, I mean, once, yeah, I mean, the work's gonna get done on it, and then you're just gonna start seeing stuff like, hey, we're traveling on this world map because we already have the pictures of the world map. Now here we are traveling on it, and we'll have those red. One of the first things we want to do is get rid of those red, and this is stuff that may actually make it to fort mode in some 50 point whatever release before adventure mode even comes out, is the replacement of those red rectangles when you embark with actual images of sites, right?
Yeah.
Because it all carries over between the modes.
Mm-hmm. And
that'd be cool, right? I mean, there's a human town. You can see the little walls and buildings and stuff before adventure mode comes out. That'd be kind of a treat.
There's all sorts of stuff like that's going to happen.
What amount of detail is going to be in those red placeholders? Like, if I re-embark in a world, would I be able to see, like, my surface walls, for example? Or is it just going to be, like, a static image for a city?
When you say your surface walls, do you mean ones that your fortress made, or do you mean the human towns?
Like, my walls that I made out of my own fortress.
So that's a different red rectangle, and I do not know what we're going to be able to pull off there. We can pull off something because it can save the site. It can save the site, understand the site map. But you've seen adventure mode, right? You've seen the human towns and how they have,
like the big green
roads,
roads
and canals and castles and walls and stuff like that. That should all translate over.
And it even understands, like, in those human towns where individual temples and buildings are within their squares and stuff. And we haven't talked to the artists about that. Like, is there going to be even more detail we can get across that really, conveys specifically what the city looks like, even within a tile, which would be kind of amazing. But who knows? Yeah, who knows what we're going to be able to pull off with the procedural maps? But it's going to be good. It's going to look really cool. And then, forts, who knows? I mean, it'd be cool if we could, like, just take essentially what's on the surface, like looking down at the fortress from space or whatever, and pick, like, the topmost tile, like if you have green glass constructions or something.
Like a Google Earth.
Yeah, just do a little Google Earth map and just slap that in a procedural texture that it puts on the world map. That'd be cool looking, wouldn't it?
That would be cool.
But within reach.
Yeah. So at this point, I think in the short term, we got native Linux and Mac ports on the horizon. We've got frame rate increases, hopefully some format of experimental multi-threading, and hopefully sooner rather than later, archers that work. And in the long term, we have, adventure mode and other exciting things to look forward to.
Yeah, it's
Also,
always exciting.
in the short term, this is kind of me taking a moment to shout about something. Tomorrow, currently, because we're in Pacific time, at 4 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, my teammate FG Squared is going to be taking a Dwarf Fortress save file, which different community member generated, and we are going to be running that save file around the clock 24/7 until Monday on various Twitch channels, raising money for Doctors Without Borders. This is the Hot Potato Charity Marathon for Dwarf Fortress. This is the first one of these that we've done for Dwarf Fortress. We've done several for Rimworld in the past, so hopefully we can get some friendly competition of who can raise more. And so we're going to try and make some money for charity over the next few days. So after this stream ends here, I will be sending people over to somebody who's going to be taking part in the event, and also for anybody watching the VOD on YouTube, once this goes up on YouTube, odds are pretty good the event's happening right now if you watch this in the first 2 days. So go take a look at Twitch and help us raise some money for Doctors Without Borders.
And you gotta beat Rimworld. Come on now.
Well, let's temper our expectations, because the Rimworld event does have about 15 more streamers that takes part, and it lasts an extra 2 days. So let's temper the expectations a little bit. But the first Rimworld marathon we did raised just over $20,000.
Ooh, very good.
And had more people than we have for this one. So if we can at least beat the first Rimworld charity marathon, I'm quite happy with that. Unless somebody wants to help us raise, like $130,000, which is what we did with the last Rimworld one.
Yeah, that too.
That's a bit of a challenge. But hey,
go
something
find
to shoot
some
for.
riches. Find some riches in the mountain and get them out there.
Yes.
Because you need those. You need what your werewolf hospital needs. Doctors.
The dwarves will be exporting all of the splints, and I'm sure the elves will love that. But I just got to say thank you very much for lending me an hour and 40 minutes of your time, and talking about this cool video game that you make that we get to play here once again. So I think this is kind of the chance to just say thank you for making a cool as hell game that we all get to play and enjoy here. And we're gonna wind this conversation down now. So.
You're welcome. Thank you for giving me a new place to stay with all my dogs. Two pups, 2 cats, and an iguana.
An iguana? There's an
There you
iguana.
go.
Yeah, Salvador the iguana.
Oh wow, I was unaware of that. I knew about the dogs, but
Yeah, that's a full size iguana too. That's a big old animal.
Yeah, it's 7 years old.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
well,
Yeah, a dragon.
Yes.
the household dragon, the puppies and the cats. But thank you very much, and we'll continue buying copies and gifting copies and playing video games here on Twitch and playing Dwarf Fortress. So I'm going to take us off air now, so now's the opportunity to say goodbye. And chat room, thanks for being awesome co-hosts this round, and we'll see you in a little bit when we come back.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, see ya.